Thank you for your patience and thank you for coming to the InnovatorMD network meeting, graciously hosted by Tori Smith and his company.
Guys, yeah, welcome. It's a real honor to have people over at Endiatx, where we actually have a real headquarters.
Yeah, it's a great place. It's so cool. I'm sure you can see some of the robots working in the background. It also it's a great space for just getting together and trying to understand what you're doing here, Tori. So today's session, mainly I wanted to ask a few questions and get some answers from you. I know that you've been active in the Founder Institute community as a mentor for one of our health tech startup accelerators.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for your contributions and the way you inspire our startup founders. The second thing is that you've been in the Silicon Valley for a while and you've done this many times. And I was wondering how you're feeling about the environment in general. What is your take on the investment side, the VC side? How is it going? And give us some inside scoop.
Absolutely. So if we're going to start this off with Founder Institute, I'm a mentor now, but
Yes.
like Hair Club for men, right? I'm also a member, right? So we had this idea of making robot pills that would go inside the body for years. And I was trying to figure out, how do you found a company like this? I didn't even know. How do you file a patent? How do you incorporate? How do you raise money? I was looking through the lens of a engineer in a cubicle. And to many people, you feel kind of trapped by what's around you. I walked into Founder Institute with a napkin sketch and a team, and they basically helped us incorporate, raise money, learn to tune the business model, learn to look at markets. And we came out of the program with a funded company that had IP and actually had physical prototypes built.
Wow.
Yeah.
By the way, InnovatorMD is a partner of Founder Institute, and we run the health tech vertical accelerator, and it's a virtual accelerator. And we are going to be starting our third cohort this fall. So thank you for entrepreneurs and also mentors like you that we have 80 plus mentors on the program.
It's an incredible group. InnovatorMD is really cool because when you're inside an accelerator like Founder Institute, you are constantly trying to not fail out of the program, and you're being held to high standards. You're uncomfortable, but you ask yourself, oh man, what if Founder Institute is just this small community, and if I'm successful there, what if no one else cares? You realize Founder Institute is connected to dozens of other programs and groups of people throughout the world. And if you can have a good experience in Founder Institute and start to make friends with satellite organizations, your company, your team, and your own personal journey definitely has a future.
Thank you. And most of you know what InnovatorMD is and how we mentor startups, mentor founders to find their dream project and help them get that product into the market. And so we do master classes and meetups and conferences and all of that, the educational part and creating the platform. But how has the experience been so far with your company?
Sure. Well, earlier you touched on present market conditions. What's it like to be a founder, or I just say co-founder because there's no way I'm here without my team, right? But one of the interesting things is the company where I spent the most time, 9 years of my life, was InnovatorMD, making atherectomy catheters, and we were very much affected by the 2008 crisis. Here we find ourselves in kind of tumultuous market times. And what I remember from then holds true now, which is that when times get tough, attention is drawn towards teams that are doing real things. Because when the market's going up and people are investing all over the place, you can get drowned out. There are a bunch of copycat companies that will often get funded just because people are searching for things to fund. But the result is that it can be very dilutionary. It can dilute the actual raw content that's out there. And so when times get tough, if you actually think what you're doing is real and compelling, and your team is committed to it, you can actually have an easier fundraising experience when things get really hard. Because when things get hard, people get serious and they cut the BS.
Yeah.
And so right now we've just had a pretty amazing month. It had its highs and lows, but actually we've just secured our biggest check ever just a few weeks ago, right? In fact,
congratulations.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. But I hope that founders that are listening in realize that you don't want to wait for a good time to start your company. You want to start your company the instant you realize that it's what you want to do with your life, and you'll find a way.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that in hard economic times, or when the climate is hard for VCs and investors, that's the time when all the fluff is gone.
Exactly.
So the real companies will stay, and people who are creating real products and real service, they will survive, because then it's bottom line, right? You got to create something and quickly get into market and actually generate revenue. So you're focused on taking away all the extra stuff that is not needed.
That's exactly right. And I would add that quickly to revenue is something you get to define.
Yeah.
So for example, we started Founder Institute winter 2019. Beginning of the year, we just turned 4 years old. I think we might be 2, maybe even 3 years from revenue. So 3 plus 4 is 7 years. 7 years, that's delayed revenue, right? And you might think, oh, that's unfundable. But what we like to say is, no, we're just doing things that are hard, things that other people choose not to do. And because so many people are afraid of doing things that are not easy, the things that are hard become very interesting opportunities. And that's kind of what we're here for.
Yeah. I mean, I have that experience, especially, doing Circa Therapeutics. When I go to investors, they say, oh, there's hardware and there's R&D, and it's going to be a lot of time, I tell them, hey, I'm here for the next 10 years. I'm going to do this, whether there's funding or not, because I so believe in this process. Is that part of the culture or the mindset you need to have?
Absolutely. And would it be okay to ask you to spend a few seconds or a minute telling me a little bit more about CircaMD in case anyone doesn't know?
Sure. At Circa Therapeutics, we are building a digital therapeutic using robotics, virtual reality, and video gaming as a therapeutic device system for autism. I have a daughter with autism, so I'm very passionate about this. And autism is something that has been growing at about 10% every year. And recent CDC numbers say that it's 1 in every 36 children will have autism. And that's a pretty high number. And there's not much out there other than, behavior therapy and one-on-one therapy. There's no drug that is specific for autism. And so we thought, okay, let's take a different route, using technology, using what is available in the current state, and use it to be able to provide some relief of symptoms.
And so that's Circa Therapeutics, not MTs. Thank you for that. It's interesting because we draw heavily from video games ourselves. In fact, we were trying to figure out how do you control a robot pill. And right now, Xbox controllers or PlayStation is the easy, obvious solution. I think eventually we'll try to make some kind of touchscreen app that just could exist on a phone or maybe even a smartwatch. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of heartwarming to realize that medical technology startups all over the spectrum are phasing their approach where we actually blend in components from the world of video games. I mean, for example, our little robot arm, Jacques Cousteau right here, is just running a basic demo subroutine. But it's kind of amazing to think that this is the kind of stuff I would have thought was from video games or movies a few years ago, and now it's real.
That is true, and we see a lot of blending of virtual worlds and also real worlds, and that's where I think the future is going to go. So what stage are you at right now, and what's your next big milestone that you're looking at?
Sure. A couple of recent milestones were we learned that the Edison Awards, based on the life of Thomas Edison, are calling us a game changer. And so we're heading out to Florida in a few weeks to collect that award.
Nice.
And we were very proud to have signed a know-how agreement with Mayo Clinic.
Right.
Mayo leads the world in gastroenterology. And because our robot pills operate in the GI tract, we felt it would be pretty important to go to the best, go to the people that are really serious about this, and see if held to their high bar, our dream still looks like a good idea, right?
Yeah.
And so we've put more than 24 robots through the founding team and raised a couple $1 million. So it's a good time to be at Endiatx. But all I will say is that at the beginning of Q1, we kind of had like two options, which was we knew we were running low on cash. We knew the markets looked really bad. And we thought to ourselves, our tech team was very small. We had a lot of holes in the tech team. And we basically said, okay, well, what are we gonna do? Do we go into survival mode, cut the burn, cut all the expenses, try to stretch our runway as long as possible and hope things just get better? Or stomp on the accelerator pedal, get on every stage, say yes to every single opportunity. And we opted for the latter approach. And at the end of Q1, I'm proud to say that we went from almost no cash to almost $750,000 in the bank. Our tech team has gained tons of heads over the last few months, and we are accelerating forward and feel more strong now than we ever have been. But we had to look madness in the face and choose madness. Sometimes you have to make your own luck.
Yeah. Especially, they say, when you're going through hell, keep going.
When you're going through hell, keep going.
Yeah.
Until you get out. That is beautiful. That is beautiful.
For those of our audience who do not know what your company does, can you describe the product and what it does?
Sure. Well, I have a tangible version of it, and I can actually pull that out of my little pocket. Endiatx is a name that is intended to say endoscopy, diagnostics, and treatment. We want to go inside the human body and find what's wrong and fix it using robot pills. And so this is PillBot. PillBot is a little eyeball.
Can I see it?
Yeah. You're holding maybe $35 in your hands right now. And what this is basically repurposed drone technology. Like, for example, if I say, we drive robots around inside our bodies with Xbox controllers, some people might say, that sounds crazy. That sounds like the future. That sounds not real. But if I also said, hey, a 12-year-old kid could go to the local toy store, buy a little drone for 25 or 50 bucks and fly it around their neighborhood, you wouldn't bat an eye. You'd be like, yeah, that's obvious. We see that every day.
Yeah.
So our question is, if you can fly a little drone out of a toy store around your park, surely you should be able to fly a little drone inside the stomach. And so our question is, can we turn out of, I think there's 72 million upper endoscopies performed every year. And that means we slide a tube down your throat in a hospital, look around, we probably have to drug you up.
Under sedation, yeah.
Often under sedation, sometimes not. Could we turn those hospital visits into a Zoom call from home if you could swim a little drone eyeball around someone's stomach? And so that's the question that we are seeking to answer at Endiatx.
Nice. Wow. That's a great solution, I would say. So one question is, that pill looks a little too big. Have you swallowed it?
It's pretty big. It's pretty big. We might even get an opportunity to show you some of the other prototypes later, because our first prototype coming out of Founder Institute was the size of an American football. And our goal with that wasn't to say, hey, we make the best robot pills on the planet. Our goal was to tell our friends and our family and our professional network who had seen us go into the Founder Institute program. Our goal was to say, hey, we're serious. We're going to go from paperwork to actual mechanical engineering. We're going to make the thing now. And we didn't ask anyone to think it was perfect. We just asked them to acknowledge that we were serious, right? Yeah. So we raised almost $200,000 with that prototype by swimming around in a swimming pool with it and shooting a fun video. Choose the right swimming pool, right? So we chose to ask the former CTO of AMD, Intel's competitor, Fred Weber, if we could borrow his swimming pool. And Fred said, I think I see what you're doing here, but yeah, no problem. And so we had our pool parties at his swimming pool. And a year later, once we had gone from thumb size to fingertip size and started swallowing them, he became an angel investor. And so the narrative here, though, is you take what you have, which may very well be essentially a potato. You be honest about your potato, and you see who will be willing to talk to you. Just have a conversation, because if you can make a friend that day, you might get a LinkedIn connection. You might get a cell phone you could text once in a while. You might get an email address that you could send a monthly update to. If you're able to make real connections, you can take a potato and just use that as one of many steps along the way.
That's great advice for our innovators and entrepreneurs. I also see that you are into making connections, networking with people. How important is that for a startup?
It's critical. The key is, on any given day of a startup, most of the team is going to be experiencing what looks like failure. So the CEO is going to be failing to raise money that day. If they're lucky, they'll get a few rejections. And if they get the rejections, that means they're doing their job. If you're not getting told no, you are actually failing to do your job. The engineers, and the CEO may be an engineer, right? The engineers will be failing to make the tech work, right? Our video is terrible, our battery life's not working, the 3D print just failed. Any number of brush fires and failures are going to be a part of your day. And your entire company is going to basically be a big collection of failures that day. But the key is, that's your job, is to fail every single day, but just keep failing. What we like to say at Endiatx is let someone else quit today, right? And the neat thing is, if you are going through hell, you keep going. Over time, you start to pick up little victories. And the key is, this whole process has value. The win has value at the end, absolutely. We're all pushing for the big wins, all right? But perhaps what has even more value is the long string of failures and the team that never quits amidst those failures. And so what you need to do is make sure the world sees you in this fire. The world needs to see your team struggling and never quitting. That is what people fall in love with. And so that's the value of networking, a monthly update, going and traveling to conventions, and sometimes paying, sometimes not, sometimes sneaking in, right? Founders have a little bit of a license to, I wouldn't say break the rules in an inappropriate way, but bend the rules. If you're a founder and you're convinced that, Bill Gates would be moved by seeing your technology, if you figure out where he's going to be and find a way to briefly bump into him and say, oh, Mr. Gates, I'm working on this tech to save lives, that might not be ugly. That might actually be a reasonable thing to go do. And so make sure people see you in your most difficult times, because then they know that you're unlikely to quit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And especially in an early stage startup, that's what people are looking for. Is the founder and the team really serious about this? And will they survive, all the hurdles that they will eventually face? Every startup has to face that. Otherwise, you don't get a decent product. So I know that you've been through our Founder Institute accelerator, and we teach founders to come up with 1-minute pitch or an elevator pitch. Or what is your elevator pitch?
I make robot pills.
Okay, that's easy.
4 words. I make robot pills. And the best elevator pitch for a company is the fewest number of words that can put some kind of an image in someone's mind and raise some kind of a question. So if I walk up to someone on the street and we chit chat and they ask me what I do, and I say, oh, I make robot pills. Well, that probably is going to make the person think like, okay, well, what's a robot pill? Why are you making it? What's it even for? Those are great questions. Those questions add value. I was in a parking lot once, and an old friend of mine said, whoa, Tori, I haven't seen you in a while. What are you up to? And I was like, oh, I've been making robot pills. Can I see one? So I pull a tangible thing out of my coin pocket and I hand it to him. And he says, well, Tori, his name is Ron, by the way, from Centerline Medical. And he says, are you taking investments? And I said, yeah, actually, we were fundraising like crazy. And he's like, mark me down for $100,000. That's the value of an elevator pitch. 3 weeks after that, after we closed his $100,000, we had $75,000 in the bank, right? And so if I hadn't had that elevator pitch there at that time and had this tangible thing, we would have been in more hot water. The last thing I would add to this is that if every company has a good elevator pitch, every question from an investor or a stakeholder has a good elevator pitch answer. So what this means is if someone has granted you some time to maybe look at your slide deck,
Making them curious, basically, right?
if they've given you the time and the space to discuss your project, the last thing you want to do is give 3-minute answers. You want to give teaser answers that are true, but not totally complete, because it is 10,000 times more valuable to get a follow-up question and satisfy that question with another elevator pitch style answer. Much more valuable than to just drone on and on, because very quickly people lose interest.
They'll tune out.
And everything here is emotional, right? You are flirting with people, and you should honor the fact that they've given you some time. Satisfy their itch. Don't push them away with a wall of words.
Yeah, that's great advice for startups and how to pitch. They say, each interaction should be an invitation for them. You should get an invitation for the next interaction or the next question or the next, so that you're keeping them curious and having them this thirst to know more about you and what you do.
You can get help from your team. So if you're on a Zoom call and you're pitching, let's say you have a 30-minute meeting. First of all, you should try to finish in 25, right? That shows them that you respect their time. That's a big deal. Second of all, don't just vomit your slides onto the Zoom call. Ask them why they're interested in your project. Ask them how they became an investor. Ask them what their experience was like as a founder, if you see that in their LinkedIn, right? You will start to develop a human relationship with that person. And that's a very valuable thing.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole business is based on relationships, and they understanding you and what you stand for and what your values are, and what is your let's say the strengths, right? And once they realize that, oh, okay, this person is reliable, this person is hardworking, this person is smart, and they have the grit to be able to go to the goal line, and that's what matters for people to trust in you and helping you fund it or give you connections or point in the right direction.
That grit is important. That's one of the most important factors. But something important for founders to know is that you don't have to be perfect. We see the big wins on TV or on the internet and TechCrunch, and you tend to assume, just like with social media, that person lives a blessed, perfect life and that you suck, right? In truth, we are all humans. We all suffer from depression. We all have bad days. We all have bad weeks, right? Months even. My advice to founders is give yourself permission to be human. You have to forgive yourself for being human. Love yourself for being human. Because if you are kicking yourself for being depressed, well, you're already taking a hit for the depression. Now you get a double hit that you yourself apply. That's twice as much weight to carry, right? Why not carry just half that much weight? So my advice is, let's say you're having a terrible day and you can't even get out of bed. You can hide under a blanket, right? What I do
most of my days, by the way.
Right. When I'm having just a bad day and I just feel drained of energy and the whole world has gone gray, well, I go to a comfortable space. So maybe under a blanket on a couch, get a cup of coffee. And what I'll do is I'll let my phone take me on an adventure, because my phone knows I like tech. My phone knows I like TechCrunch and cool articles. So get your coffee and just look and see what's going on out in the world on this day of depression of yours. And do a little experiment, which is find an article that actually excites you. Something cool. For me, it would be microscopic robot surgeons at MIT, right? Cool stuff. What you do then is you say, well, who are the names, in this article? And this could be like a YouTube science video, right? Who made the video? Who wrote the article? Who is the article about? Founders, okay? Which are the venture capitalists that funded those founders? Who are the executive assistants to those venture capitalists? Finally, who's the journalist? Who wrote that article? Go out and find them on professional social media and add every single one of them, right? And do that when you feel depressed, because you can't build your tech that day, but you're not going to quit. You can build your network, right? So my advice is give yourself permission to be imperfect and find a way to actually kind of make that work for you sometimes.
Great. I mean, that's great advice. And that's why, we support all these networks where startups can get advice, get, connections, get, community, basically, to be able to support each other. Now, we're coming to an end, but I wanted to ask you this. Why Silicon Valley? Why can't we go someplace cheaper and, be able to build your thing there?
Absolutely. So first of all, I love Silicon Valley. I have a spiritual attraction to the name. I used to think of it as kind of like a hippie kid. Oh, that's gross, evil business. But no, as I matured into an adult, I started to realize, like, wow, this is a place where people really go to pound on the sky, to reference an old Tron quote. So I love Silicon Valley, and I'm really glad to be here. And this is an excellent place to start a company. But with that being said, we need to respect that there are places all around the world where cool stuff is happening. Melbourne, Australia, there's a company called Wind Drones that are cleaning the skyscraper windows with drones with squeegees. Bhargav, my friend, runs that company. In Miami, you have this surging tech scene. And it's not just tech, it's art. You have Art Basel, and that combination of tech and culture has this pressure. Like, we were just in Fort Lauderdale, just by Miami a few days ago, and you could feel the cultural power of the region. You could feel the tech and the creativity. It's pervasive. And coming from Silicon Valley, it's like, wow, respect. Here we have sort of like Burning Man in tech and Silicon Valley. Miami is like, wow, Art Basel and the startup scene. Then you have Boston, where a lot of medical technology is. The bottom line is, no matter where you are, that's a good place to launch your startup. But if you are seeking to maybe speed up a little bit, well, going physically to where the action is has something going for it, right?
Definitely.
And in a world of Zoom calls and telepresence, I would say that there are no black and white rules anymore, right? You could be anyone, anywhere. But if you want to stack the deck in your favor, Silicon Valley, in my opinion, is a wonderful place to do it.
Great. Well, so here's the last question, or last item. What is your advice? One sentence. What is the key advice you want to give to our founders that are thinking about starting, or just started, or struggling?
Simple. Go all in.
All right. There you have it. So we just go all in, and we're going to do that. And congratulations on all the work.
Thank you so much for
Wonderful to have you on our show, and good luck and everything.
Let's keep it going. I'd love to say that Endiatx, as a Silicon Valley-based company right here in Hayward, is a friendly harbor to founders and anyone connected to the network. And so through your program, I would definitely encourage people to reach out to us for support,
yes,
intros, guidance, mentorship, or just a shoulder to cry on.
And if you want to look at this cool tech here, please come by and visit.
Yeah, we're on Google Maps.
All right.
We're so excited.
Thank you very much.